I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let me close that. Good morning, everyone. I need a volunteer to take minutes for today's meeting. Randy? Actually, it's breaking protocol because we usually let the new person, but that's okay.
To retract my.
I have to get my laptop.
No, not Randy, thank you. Also, I got an email from Jack Collins. He has an excused absence. He's not feeling well. As a matter of fact, he says, I'm not even gonna log in and do the meeting remotely, okay? So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the agenda for today's meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes of the January 21st meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes as presented. Is there a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approval of the minutes from the January 21st meeting, please say aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. And Sherry, thank you for those meeting minutes. They were well done. Good, and also I think that's a good one to kind of reference back to in our discussion from last month. So next item on the agenda is public comments. There's no one here in the room and no one online. Therefore, I will close the item for public comments and move to the next item on the agenda, and that is a review and discussion of the December monthly financial reports. As we do, just pull it up. We'll go page by page. Starting with the first one. Positive variance of December was 24,813. Any questions on that first page? And moving on to the next page, our standard operating account summary. Not much has changed there, other than to note that we're still at positive 391K over the budget. Any questions on that page? Move to the next page, operating results. This is a pretty quiet month. Any questions on that page? Next item is net operating by department. Any questions, comments on that page?
Yeah, last month, you had commented about the food and beverage and, that, December results are similar. They're much lower than last year's year to date. But I think we're looking at apples versus oranges here because the climate has changed. Have you guys seen, or do you have a summary of the terms of the contract?
No, we can request them if needed. I've not, only because, I don't know that there's anything that would influence us. And I actually, from a personal perspective, it keeps it simple. We're looking at, the monthly lease payment and then the 6.5% of food sales. I mean, to me, I don't need that. This is me personally, certainly everybody has their opinion. Me personally, I don't know that the Budget and Finance Committee has to really worry about any additional details like that.
Right, no, I agree that 6% of food is, I'm assuming what's reflected here in that food and beverage number.
Yes.
But of course, the depreciation is covered by the rent.
Mhm.
So it's gonna be hard to make year-to-year comparisons because it is apples to oranges.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we should continue to look at as we go into budget prep, at the end of the summer. In other words, what have we learned with this lease and what guidance do we get from the operations side to say, here's some of the considerations of the things we've experienced as we've gone through our fiscal year running, the operation the way we have it constructed right now. So. Other comments on the page for net operating by department? Okay. Next item is the operating summary.
These are running well ahead of It's a lot colder.
Yeah,
That's
that's,
surprising.
that's an interesting, that is an issue. That was one of the things I looked at. It's, geez, the variance year to date is 108K, you know. Now, I should know this and I'll tell them myself, but I'm wondering, the utilities also includes water. So with the water rates that have gone up, you would expect, you know, a larger amount right there. I'm assuming that that's, you know, a contributing factor to that number. So that,
But it is pretty close to last year's year to date. Interesting, because last year was Miss Cole,
mhm,
this year.
mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I actually expected it to be higher. We talked about it at the budget meeting in December.
Mhm.
They were budgeting, I think, basically the same thing previous year. Sure you want to do that?
Well,
Everybody's going up and.
Well, I think in fairness to all those involved in the budget prep, the rate hike for the water had not been in place, had not yet been in place. So they based the budget, you know, projection on the numbers from the previous year. Of course, now the budget's passed and then you know, they come in and change the rates. Obviously, we'll have to adjust accordingly. But yeah, and it's a good point that we're kind of year to date right where we were last year too. So maybe we're managing it better, don't know, but certainly it doesn't raise a red flag for me.
In December, or this December, remember, so January can be a little different with that massive cold streak we had with the
Yeah, I'm
snow.
sure.
Right, that's
So you'll see the spike in January versus.
Yeah, that plus all the days that the facilities are closed, especially the golf course, clubhouse, yacht club. So certainly had the weather certainly had an effect on things. Anything else on the operating summary page? All right, moving on. Next item is racket sports. Questions, comments, Colette?
Yeah, you know, my observation is that the revenues in all categories were lower than last year. And I'm not sure what the explanation for that is, but the budgeting was much more optimistic than last year in all categories also. And so, you know, again, when we get into budget development in the fall, maybe take a closer look at that. The other thing that I noted is how much the wages and benefits year to date is this year to last year. It's almost $20,000.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's a position difference. I don't know.
Don't know, maybe reallocation of staff could be it too.
And the maintenance, of course, was much larger. I'm sure that has to do with the work that's being done on the clubhouse.
Yeah, and I think that
Was done.
the rack, not the golf clubhouse, but the racket center.
racket club.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, when we come into the fall, then we'll start to be able to gauge the 2 years of membership. Because we had, you know, when the rates changed year, which we, you know, saw the big drop off and then this whole year. So we'll start watching the memberships grow in the spring and we'll be able to make a better decision in the fall.
Yeah, we had that discussion last month where one of my opinions was, is it, okay, there was a drastic change in the fee structure. And rather than a knee-jerk reaction, it's better to get a year's worth of data and look at it. And then that'll certainly influence the budget preparation for the coming year. Plus, you know, you have another year's worth of, you know, what the fee structure will affect the membership and so on and so forth. So I, for one, would not, you know, kind of advise that, you know, the fee structure be, you know, revamped and so on and so forth. I think you absolutely need at least 1 and possibly even 2 years worth of data before you make another significant change. So, but that's, you know, we talked about that last month. That's for your benefit. We had that discussion last month.
Committee wants to have another marketing blitz starting in March.
For the racket center. Yeah, interestingly, the drop-ins were lower too. I wonder if that had to do with weather. And I'm not a racket person. I don't know how kind of cold weather racket players play. We golfers hard to boats.
Any other thing on the racket sports report? Okay, it was just noted that, you know, not recommending any changes right now, and we are continually monitoring, you know, as we go through in preparation for being advised for the budget for the upcoming year. Next item is aquatics. Any comments, questions on that page?
The utility company,
Please.
year to date versus year to date last year.
Yeah, you look at the utilities from year-to-date actuals from last year was 112K. And as of right now, it's 79. So
Last year,
Last year was seven.
last year.
yeah, last year was 79 and this year is 112. So there's a big, you know, it's over budget by, even though they budgeted more, they budgeted 92. But it's 20K over. So again,
When did the water take place? Because that's gonna affect the refilling the pool, keeping the pools, you know, so that could be the water hit.
yeah, not knowing how they quote unquote manage the water level in pools, you have to think there's obviously, you know, they're filling it and maybe filtering it out, so on and so forth. So they're continuing, you know, to use water, I'm sure, at a higher rate now.
Yeah.
It's not unexpected. It's something that that we'll certainly keep an eye on for next year when it comes to budgeting the utility number, because that's clearly going to be affected by obviously that rate change.
And even if it's the outdoor pools were closed before the new rates came in, I don't know, I forget the timing of the new rates, but we've got that indoor pool, which would
Yeah.
take a lot of maintenance.
Yeah, which I know, by the way, and I'm sure the operations folks have already thought this through, is that when you have to go to refill the outdoor pools, you're going to be at a new, rate per gallon, cost per gallon rate when they fill. So obviously they'll take that into consideration when they're refilling the pools for the upcoming season. Anything else on aquatics? Okay. Next item is combined golf operations. Questions, comments? One thing I noticed, even though it's doing quite well, is that if you look at the year-to-date actuals for expenses, it's 1.06 mil, and year-to-date last year was 973. So, the question there is clearly, we've increased whether it's certainly not under wages and benefits. If you look at that, it's on par with what it's been year-to-date last year. So just something to, keep an eye on, with regard to, the expenses. Will they continue to trend that way? Frank?
On that, I believe when we had that big push at the end of the year, when grass was dying off and things were problematic there, the board did talk about giving extra money to Justin to buy whatever supplies he needed to rectify the situation with the problems in the fourth hole and several of the other holes.
Yeah.
Maybe that contributed to other expenses, other chemicals he had to buy, other whatever he had to buy in order to make that work.
Or wouldn't that
I don't know where we see that.
show up in the golf maintenance report, the extra report we get from Steve that has rec and parks and I don't know. I haven't really noted.
Is there there's a maintenance component to this one, isn't there?
Yeah.
Or is it down the bottom?
Yeah.
Mhm.
What's that say?
I mean, if you look at it,
Yeah.
year to date, maintenance was last year was 25K and right now it's 43. So yeah, and again, those costs have to be variable because you're adjusting to what the weather does to the course.
Serious this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I know actually they put a lot of effort into getting things back after it was like early August with things.
Yeah, the
place
end of
before.
July, 1st of August, it
Yeah.
was a pot in a hurry,
Yeah,
and then
it was
recovered fairly well by middle of September.
and put a. All right, I'll suspend Robert's rules.
Thanks,
Not
Doug. Also, remember they're redoing all the tee boxes with different grass and things that's supposed to last longer. So that probably has influenced some of that. Thank you.
Noted, thank you. Restating Robert's rules, any other questions on combined golf ops? All right, thank you. Next item, beach parking. Pretty pretty standard. I believe last month we didn't have a whole lot to say about it. I don't know that this month changes anything. I don't want to influence anybody's ability to ask a question, but I don't know that there's a lot there we have to worry about.
Their budget by $1.
Oh, that's pretty darn close. Pretty darn close. Okay, next item is marinas. You know, and if you look, there was no activity this month. And, you know, if you go back to overall year to date, we're actually doing a little bit better than we were at this time last year. No comments or issues on that. Okay. The reserves. Any questions or comments on reserves? Yeah, the only thing that I'm interested in at this point is, given the fact that we, the irrigation project and so on and so forth, which comes out of reserves, where is the end of fiscal year balance going to be? You know, on April 30th. That's all. Just kind of curious as to where their target is, especially based on the information that John and the operating team got back from the reserve study done by DMA. You know, it's a little bit different approach, and all of those things certainly factor into where that balance ought to be. And so I don't know that there's no magic number. As far as I'm concerned, there's no magic number, other than taking the guidance from what was done for the DMA study and making sure that's implemented, that, as we build and manage our reserve amounts. Any other questions on reserves? Okay, next item is capital summary. See any, Randy?
Comment that on several of the categories, I think they have actual year to date and no budget. But what does that mean? Does that mean that they're just
Where are you looking at right now?
aquatics, for example? Recreation?
Oh, yeah. 31. Well, one of the things that that I've noted over the years I've been involved is, you don't necessarily call them emergency spends, but there's got to be enough flexibility in the budget that one could enter. Let's say a major piece of capital equipment breaks down, okay, and the GM signing authority, I believe it, back when I was president, we up it to 25,000. So so if it's a piece of, if let's say that said piece of equipment really wasn't even considered in the budget because of, its useful life was certainly going to span the existing fiscal year. Well, then it breaks down, and the answer of, it's going to be X amount of dollars to fix it, or Y amount of dollars to just replace it. And so it's well within the budget. So I don't really look at that, especially given the amount. Now, if that amount was $250,000, then then I'd want to go, okay, well, let's look at this. Of course, that would have been under the scrutiny of the board as well. Yeah, I've seen that in the past, and personally, that doesn't raise any red flags for me. I think it's just the flexibility of managing the budget across the fiscal year.
But I guess that was, I would say, a not insignificant unforeseen purchase.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be able to do that.
Yeah. Multiple.
Yeah, and I mean, I
I went back and looked at the November, same things. Same.
Was it the same level in 80,000?
Well, I think it's throughout. It's like racket sports. They did budget 22,000 and 129. Creation at 5,200 and 113,000. So I
That's a
mean,
big
it
difference.
could very well be that.
Yeah.
We
Well-
got the money, let's go ahead and fix this stuff.
agreed. And again, I think, the racket sports is a good example. I think when the budget was being prepared, they didn't anticipate redoing the building. Okay, so they put the 22,000 in, and then all of a sudden the board said, well, let's redo it. Well, this is after, the budget's already been passed. You got 22K in the budget slot for that. And of course, now the board says, okay, we've got the money, let's do it now. So you see that 129K in there going, okay, it was because they made a decision to, update the facility. and again, that goes back to, it's a good example of managing the budget, the budget is, to me, I mean, I'm sure as you guys realize, it's nothing more than guidance, it's not saying, if we've got $12 in this slot, you can spend $12 and that's it. It doesn't work that way, so. All right,
Had to do some resurfacing.
yeah,
And also with the new building comes unexpected, like the water fountain maybe had to be upgraded or that wasn't considered.
well, yeah, I mean, but.
In the building.
Yeah, but that would fall under the maintenance side of it rather than a capital purchase. This looks like it was, this capital, and because it was coming out of, if you look at it, like the racket sports, it's coming out of replacement. So it's coming out of replacement
Yeah.
reserves. All right, so they didn't anticipate wanting to put the building up and do the modifications and the renovations that they did.
There were problems with that too. They thought they were gonna be able to use the footings that were already under the poles around the outside, but when they started digging, there were no footings in between, so they had to put all new footings in as well. So there was a pretty good sized cost overrun
Yeah,
in that part
Yes,
as well.
70,000 of that is building renovations, that 120.
Yes, it was, the original estimate was probably much lower than that. They had to bump it up.
Some of the things that you would consider maybe maintenance weren't maintenance because they had to be replaced new with the building.
yeah.
So that wouldn't fall under maintenance like the courts would be.
Yeah, and those sidewalks, I think,
Yeah,
are
but-
about 16,000.
Yeah, but it would fall under replacement.
Oh, it would?
Yeah, oh yeah, because it's an existing asset.
Okay.
Okay. Which anecdotally, I don't mean to, but when you mentioned footings, remember when we were building the clubhouse and we went to Marvin Steen and we looked at the footings, and to make sure that, and lo and behold, those footings could last for another 50 years. Whoever did it, they did it right.
Driven
Oh,
down.
it really made the ability to move forward with that building very easy because, Marvin and other engineers had said that footing for that building and the way it's positioned and what they've done is perfect. Okay, great. All right, back to the meeting. Other things on, capital summary. All right. Let's look at the balance sheet. Any questions on the balance sheet? See no issues there. Okay. Next item is cash and investments. Pretty straightforward. 2 million, I think we got enough to run the operation. Yeah. 6 month. Yeah, one's, well, treasury bill was, the end of January. The next treasury bill is, the end of March. One of the CDRs is due at the end of this month. So, but again, that's what we count on the finance team to continue to look at, the reinvestment and so on and so forth. Any other questions on the cash and investments page? All right. Next item is the membership report. And at the risk of picking out racket sports, it's been pretty consistent about where that is. So again, just continuing to make sure that we look at those numbers and not do any knee-jerk reaction to that change in the fee structure. All right, and then the last item on December were the supplemental reports. And that was provided by Steve. If we look at that one, we've had golf maintenance. So any questions on golf maintenance? If you look at the utilities, it's year to date last year and year to date this year are almost exactly the same. However, year to date this year on maintenance is almost 20K more than it was year to date last year. Okay, so again, I'm sure reacting to the changes in the status of the course and so on and so forth. I mean, it's expected that those numbers can't be exactly the same from year to year to year. Any other questions on golf maintenance? All right. Last one is rec and parks. Any questions on that page? Seeing none, we'll claim that the review of the December financials has been completed. Now, next item on the agenda is review and discussion of the January monthly financial reports, and they're not available yet. So obviously we can't do that. And let's move into a discussion on next item on the agenda, discussion of possible changes to the meeting schedule. I'd like to open a discussion. We kind of touched on it last month. And I think Randy had mentioned that, yeah, that they pretty much and I have to agree with you that up until December, the reports were always available before the third week in the month, all right, before we met. So I don't know what else has changed, but I will suspend Robert's rules and ask Monica.
Thanks. So the board meetings are now the fourth Saturday of the month. So I'm sure that's had something to do with pushing it back because it used to be the third Saturday.
Yeah.
Every month. So now it's the fourth. So
Is that going now?
yes, there's some discussion about a summer, maybe changing a date, which I'm not in favor of, by the way. But, and that would be, I think it's July or something. But, have a weekday. But I think that's really the biggest thing is
Yeah.
our meetings are now the fourth Saturday every month.
Thank you. I'll continue to suspend Robert's rules for the sake of discussion. Question to the committee. I see two potential avenues of approaching this issue. One would be just to go ahead and move our meeting back to the fourth Wednesday of the month, which I would assume, I think it's a valid assumption, would allow us to make sure that we had the reports for that month. Personally, to me, and this is no knock on anybody, but today is February 18th, and we're talking about a 2-month-old report. Okay, I mean, to me, that's not, to me, it's not an appropriate way to use the committee which is saying, hey, we're looking at this, we see something, we're just gonna point it out to the board, make recommendations. 2-month-old data to me doesn't work, okay? So, we could change, agree to change the date, or we could ask the question to the operations team to say, are there other factors that we're not considering that would prevent you from going back to making sure that the monthly reports are available by the third Wednesday of the month to see, so that we have it available.
I thought it was always 15 business days in, so that would be this Friday that they would be available.
Yeah, and and as it's a very good point, and that's the month, as the months change and, the weeks change and so on and so forth, holding somebody to that 15-day, well, yeah, hey, guess what? We got it day 14, but it was still a day after your meeting. All right. So I wanted to kind of throw that second question out there just for consideration. But personally, I think it's much easier, much less complicated to just say, let's move our meeting back to the fourth Wednesday of the month to ensure that we get the reports.
And then it's right before the board meeting.
Yeah.
Fourth
It's
Saturday.
right after the board meeting.
Right after.
Right after the board meeting.
Yeah, fourth Saturday, right? We want to be the fourth Wednesday. That would be into the next month. I mean.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Well,
no,
it
you're
depends
correct.
on the month. Some
So,
months it'll be the Wednesday after, some months it'll be the Wednesday up.
so a couple of things come to mind, is that, and this was several years ago, there was a correlation between the BNF committee having the reports before the board meeting, okay? And quite frankly, again, I'll tell it myself, I don't remember all the details as what the reasoning behind that. But as of right now, unless somebody can help me out and tell me something differently, I don't know that there's that same correlation between the Budget and Finance Committee having the report before the board meeting. Okay? But,
Yeah, my thought is that it would probably be better to have it have our discussion after the board meeting. Because some of the issues that we're gonna bring up are probably gonna be brought up in the general manager's report. And so we'll have the benefit of what has already been thought about and talked about
Mhm.
versus what we notice and we bring up.
yeah, and that's a good point. The only thing is that only will happen on a month where the board meeting happens prior to the BNF meeting. Again, from my perspective, just wanted to make sure that, we're a little bit, closer on the data we're looking at, and it's not 2 months old. So I think, unless somebody is vehemently opposed to it, I'd like to, basically change our schedule so that we have, meetings now on the fourth Wednesday of the month rather than the third, to allow us to make sure that we get the current month's financial report. Any questions or concerns on that?
Over the next 2 months, March and April, we would be the 25th, and then the board is the 28th. We would be the 22nd, board's the 25th, so that's pretty much what it's gonna be like, except for short months.
And long months,
Yeah.
long
maybe
months,
long
it's gonna be the opposite.
Okay, but I think we can work with that. I don't, I like your point about the fact that, there might be something said in the general manager's report at a board meeting that would maybe negate a question that we had, going in there. Or, if we have let's say, for example, we meet on the fourth Wednesday and the board meeting is on the fourth Saturday, we have a question that comes out of our meeting on that Wednesday. It may get answered in the GM report on that Saturday at the board meeting. All right, so I think from that perspective, having it, having that schedule the way it is, I think would be beneficial.
Yeah, which brings to mind, last month you got answers to some questions, right?
Yeah,
That the
we
committee
had
had, and you
one
sent
question.
answer to the committee.
Mhm.
Should those questions be answered in the meeting so that observers or people who would want to look at the meetings
Yeah.
after the fact would be privy to those answers?
Yeah, matter of fact, we can, I will tell you that, since we only had one question, I think it was fairly benign, there was not a thing there, but, if you go back to previous meetings, one of the things that I would do would be to read the answers to the questions. So, we're not going to abandon that. Thank you for reminding me. We'll certainly make sure that, going forward, we get answers to questions, which brings me to another thing. There's no questions coming out of this meeting, so I guess we don't have to worry about that one, but, go back to the point of, if everybody's comfortable, let's agree to meet on the fourth Wednesday of the month and take it from there. I'll notify, Linda Martin, so we schedule it accordingly, and certainly the board will be made aware of that. Okay, thanks for the feedback. Next item on the agenda is, general committee members. Randy,
Nothing here, thanks.
Sherry, Frank,
Good.
Colette? Doug? Nothing.
I have one thing, I'm sorry.
Well,
Just wanted to
we can't go back. Once you catch you.
Just wanted to welcome Colette. We
Thank you.
didn't welcome her in the beginning. Thank you.
Good. No, I have nothing, so, unless there's anything else that we're forgetting, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, we can, meeting, 37 minutes. Very good.
Got a record. That might be a record.